Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Duin. Uh, I'm a board member at ALS Northwest. Became involved about 8 years ago when a good friend of mine, Steve, was diagnosed with ALS. Um, I asked Susan Pennock to join me today, our care services coordinator, because I've got some questions about our care regions map and some data that's often shared at our board meetings. So, Susan, thanks for joining me for a quick conversation.
Thanks for
Would you like
having
to
me.
introduce yourself any more than
Sure.
that?
Yeah, so I'm Susan Pennock. I'm the care services director now, but started as a care service coordinator about 8 years ago. I remember meeting your friend early on in my career. So I've been doing this for a while and super happy to be connecting back in with you today and sharing some information about what we do and why we do it. So
Thanks. Well, like I said, one of the things we want to share today is a care regions map and the data that goes into setting up our care regions. So maybe we could share that map right now. This is what I was referencing. It gets shared regularly at board meetings, and we look at data, and I always find this really interesting. Um, just so I thought, Susan, I'd ask you a couple of questions today about how you use the data, how it helps structure what we do, what you do, and how you do it. So
definitely.
maybe we start with the population and CDC numbers at the top right of the map, and how do those play out? Those are national estimates, and do you find that those trend the same way for us in Oregon and Southwest Washington?
Yeah, definitely. Happy to chat about some of these numbers for sure. So we get the population where we always get the population from. But then we start looking at these CDC numbers, and that's the Center for Disease Control and Prevalence. Those are the numbers that we're pulling when we're looking closer at this ALS number. So we're going to take our population number and then look at what does a CDC think based on the numbers they've pulled, their incident and then their prevalence rates around ALS. And we do some math, which is definitely not my favorite thing to do. I like talking about feelings more, but we do some math to then calculate these numbers that you're seeing on your screen in this map.
Okay. So with the CDC estimated prevalence rate for ALS of 9.1 per 100,000 people, and we've got almost 5 million people in the region that we serve, you'd expect 449 people with ALS to need services.
Right, exactly. That's the CDC's estimated prevalence rate of how many people would be living with ALS per 100,000 nationally, right? And so then we take it based on our states.
Okay. And
Break it down.
does that hold true? And how do you use that data to set up the 6 different care regions that you use?
That's a great question. Yeah. So we take those numbers and those prevalence rates and we break them down even further by county. So we look and see how many people we would expect to be living with ALS in each of these counties. And you can see some of that broken down by region in that map. You'll see a line that says under each region expected ALS population. So that's where we're getting that number from, is if we take all these CDC, Center for Disease Control numbers and do all of our calculating on them, this is what we think we would see in these different counties.
Gotcha.
And that's, yeah.
And do those numbers hold pretty true with each region for what you would expect versus the actual?
Yeah, so as you can see, we can't pull numbers immediately. So on this map, we're looking at our numbers of people that we served in 2024 and seeing how closely they might match up to that expected population. And as you can see, some are a little higher, some are lower, some are right on. But I think that is the nature of the game. We have to remember CDC gets their numbers through Medicare, Medicaid, the VA, and then their registry. So they're not perfect numbers. So we're never gonna have this magical matching. Well, we happen to right now in Region 2 have a magical matching of numbers, but
Yeah.
These are best guesses at any given point in time.
And that helps you direct resources, to each region. But it does look like the numbers in general match up pretty well, and it's a good system to use to direct those resources.
Definitely. As we see numbers change, then we can change where our coordinators are serving to make sure that we're getting the best coverage in the right areas.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks. So I guess on that same line, so how do you use this kind of data to make those decisions about resource allocation or program development, or do you tailor specific programs per region, or maybe some things are more important in one region than another? How do you use the data?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we definitely are consistently looking at these numbers. And like I mentioned earlier, looking at, do we need to move our care service coordinators to different areas so that better coverage is happening? I think the other way we look at these numbers is if we notice that a certain county is very low, like they should have a higher prevalence and we're not seeing anyone in that county, that tells us we need to hit that county a little harder as far as healthcare providers go. We need to find those healthcare providers out there and make sure they have the resources they need to be diagnosing and getting people the care that they need. So that's another way we look at these numbers, is if we're not seeing the people we think we should be seeing, where is that gap and how do we help fill it and make sure we're getting to them?
Gotcha. Well, I guess, the numbers are great, and the estimated and anticipated numbers are great, but I guess, how does it actually come about? How do these numbers of people being served by ALS Northwest actually come about? Where do they register? How do they get referred to the program?
Yeah, definitely. So our numbers get pulled from our database system. So unless someone is registered with us, we're not going to know about them. So that's one way we want to make sure that we get connected in with healthcare providers and get our name out there in the community. So as soon as someone thinks they have ALS or is diagnosed, that they're getting registered with us so we can serve them in the best way possible. It is the nature of the disease. I know there's people that we probably aren't connected with yet. So just making sure we're always getting our name out there. And I think similarly with the CDC numbers that we're seeing, those aren't perfect either. People are having to get registered with the ALS registry nationally as well to help them get their numbers closer to actual numbers of people living with ALS.
I suppose that's one of the biggest challenges, is just making sure people who are diagnosed are aware of this resource. Maybe that's tougher in some of the regions than others. I guess, what's the best way for ALS Northwest to get the word out about what we do and how we do it to people who may not be immediately referred to that program? I suppose maybe in the Portland Metro or Willamette Valley, there might be more services and referrals to our program. What do you do in regions or areas where those referrals might not be as prevalent?
Exactly. That's a great question. I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Obviously, we want to serve people living with ALS, but part of our job is to go find those healthcare providers that maybe don't know about us, because that's where someone's going to go when they're not feeling well and they have foot drop or they have speech problems. They're going to go see a doctor. So we need to get in there to see those doctors to make sure that they have us as a resource to share to these people. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to make sure that we're getting to everyone, is our care service coordinators in all of these areas, not of course, Portland Metro usually is well covered, but in every single region we have, we're going out there hitting the pavement, trying to make connections with healthcare providers, because that's who's going to get people in this journey on their ALS diagnosis to us the quickest.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, maybe there's some things that we can share in this conversation where people can go if they want to learn more about ALS trends nationally or here in our area. Where can they go for additional information beyond this amazing amount of data and information we're sharing here this morning?
All the numbers. Yeah, definitely nationally. We would recommend that people go to the National ALS Registry, and I think we'll get that website popped up on our screen here in a second. This is where people can go to register with the National ALS Registry to make sure those numbers that the CDC is pulling from are the most accurate. So this is not anything anyone has to do, but it's highly recommended. I know as care service coordinators in all of our regions, we're talking about the National ALS Registry with people. So this would be a good place for people to get registered, but also there's just a ton of information on this website about prevalence and incident and all of that national ALS information. So if you have that sort of brain that loves numbers, there's more articles than you could count on here. And they're not too terrible if you don't love numbers, but a lot of really good information for that kind of national look at ALS. And then for local stuff, we want people to come to alsnorthwest.org, come to our website, get registered with us if you're not, get information about ALS. Even if you don't want to see our coordinators, there's still a ton of information about living well with ALS on our website that could help you. So both of those websites would be good to keep in mind. There we are.
And there's our website. Perfect. Well, that's great, Susan. Well, like I said, I'm like you, not necessarily in love with numbers and math, but whenever we look at that map, I do kind of start to focus on some of those numbers, how we arrive at them, and then how we use them. And so it's been very helpful to chat with you a little bit about it and find out how you use them. You are kind of a rock star at ALS Northwest. One of the first people that someone who's diagnosed with ALS meets. You've got an infectious laugh and an amazing personality. Anything you want to share about yourself or any of your groupies on this conversation?
Oh, nothing
Favorite
about
music?
myself. I love all the music. I'm just so thankful to work for such an amazing organization. We have a great board, great group of care service coordinators that people with ALS are interacting with. So just super, super proud to work here, and anything I can do to support this cause, I will always do.
Well, your care is genuine and it comes through, Susan. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for chatting with me this morning.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye-bye.